Welcome to the B-Sides and Beers podcast.
Okay, I'm recording.
Here we go.
I think we got action. Yep. Okay.
Let's start off with a little of this. Oh, that's a spike. Here we go. So, what do we got going on here with our beers and beverages of choice?
No free ads, but I'm drinking.
They'll pay us later.
Yeah, no, I'm drinking Pink Whitney, the New Amsterdam vodka, which is mixed with just bubbles.
Pretty pink beverage.
It is.
Looks delicious.
It tastes good. It tastes really good. So yeah, no, I couldn't crack a beer like you guys make the sound. I couldn't do that when you guys did that. So
next time we'll
you can do
we'll
that.
Switch it up.
You can do the cap sound where you like rattle the cap off.
Yeah. It was kind of like snap crackle pop, like with the bubbles, but.
That's actually a really nice combination. I had some red wine and buble last night.
Oh yeah, how is
just
that?
Like it's delicious, just like the cherry bubbly whatever.
Yeah,
like carbonated water, and I just mix it with ice and some red wine.
Yeah,
and just like after a walk with the dog and Kira, just sit down and have a drink. Great.
It doesn't taste like watered down wine, like
no, it tastes like. When I was a kid, I used to drink a lot of like cranberry juice with water mixed in it, so that kind of reminded me of that. But
yeah,
that was great.
Nice.
And what are you drinking right now?
Okay, so I got a backcountry. It's called a Trailbreaker Pale Ale, and I think backcountry's.
Where's that brewed?
They are out of Squamish, BC. Yeah.
Keeping it local-ish.
Yep.
That's right. Right.
And Michael?
You got it. I've got myself a wonderful budget Caribou Honey Brown.
Nice.
Also in the BC area of Prince George.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll take that.
They have some pretty sweet.
How do you rank that in the Sleeman Honey Brown and the Weasel Honey Brown?
I guess I would say it's middle of the road.
Yeah.
Between the two, it's not bad. It's a nice price range, so we'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Caribou's got some pretty sweet hats.
Mm-hmm.
When you buy like a case, sometimes you can get like a free Caribou trucker hat. It's pretty nice.
I haven't seen those around lately.
Huh.
It's like the Lucky Lager, but you can get it in different flavors almost. Kind of seems like that. I don't know.
Quality.
Yeah. So let's dive into this Corey Hart versus Bryan Adams or whatever you want to call it. I don't know about you guys, but I found a ton of stuff that kind of all just came full circle a couple times, and it kind of blew my mind. So,
Beauty.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on here that, more about Corey Hart though. Like I found more about that guy than I did Bryan Adams, which is kind of strange because I thought I'd be nothing but Bryan Adams all day. But
to be honest with you, not to put like a subjective opinion on it, there was much more on Bryan Adams on his Wikipedia, but it's just too much. I got bored reading it. Corey Hart's was like, okay, this is interesting. This guy is like super talented, and like Bryan Adams just seemed all over the place for me.
Right. Well, he was in bigger markets, and that's kind of where he just kind of had more angles over the decades, right? So
well, let's start with that though, and talk about like the start of these guys' career. Like what made Bryan Adams get those big markets right off the bat? Like Corey Hart, I read that he met Billy Joel And then Billy Joel hooked him up there and said, come on back over to London and we're going to get you these musicians and they're going to lay it down for you.
Yeah, I guess he was 17 when that happened. So he kind of made a demo tape and then slipped it to everyone in the band when he went to see him at some show or whatever.
Yeah.
And I guess they called him up not too long after and brought him in there. So that was kind of cool.
It was absolutely funny 'cause I thought that it was like I kind of thought he sounded like Billy Joel, like
definitely right influenced a little bit,
like, yeah. And then when I went to read it later, it was literally like the first thing on his Wikipedia page, like after meeting Billy Joel, and I'm like, no way, like that's exactly who I was thinking about, right?
Yeah,
it's weird.
For me, the bigger surprise was the Eric Clapton connection.
Yeah. That blew
on
my
his
mind too.
On his first album, and Clapton's like, "Yeah, this is like stuff I would write. Let me do a solo on one of your songs."
Wait, did you catch what song it was?
Let's see here.
Jenny,
I think it's called.
Something.
Oh, that's like the last track on that album, I think.
Yeah, Jenny Faye.
Yeah, pretty sure that's the last one on there.
Yeah,
like how did he get him? Did anybody find that out? How does he get Eric Clapton just to show up?
Wasn't able to see that. No.
He recorded at Revolution Recording Studios in Manchester.
Yeah,
and the guy who produced it was John Astley.
Okay.
And I think Astley, if you look him up, he's done a lot of interesting people, but he was like, you know what? I think Clapton would really like some of this shit. And then just like, I apparently let Eric listen to some and then like, this is stuff that I like, sounds like stuff that I would write and I want to like contribute.
Cool.
That's like, that was Corey Hart's, like, he just had this ability to like attract and impress the right people at the right time.
And you know what? I found more information about that John Astley too, who is not related to Rick Astley. For anybody that wants to know that, I looked that up, so there's no connection there. Too bad, but anyways. But this cat is related to Pete Townsend.
Okay.
Oh
yeah. And he's produced everybody from like Zeppelin to Peter Gabriel to Judas Priest to like you name it. Like Dane said, like a million bands, right? And artists. So yeah, this guy was pretty like well established, and Corey Hart was just like another one on there for him, I think. But that helped.
Very cool.
Yeah. So if he had not bumped into Billy Joel, do you think like none of this would have happened?
Well, it was a little different too, because he also there was another interview I was watching here, and he was talking about there was a Paul Anka, huge singer dude in the 50s, 60s, and apparently he mentored Corey Hart for a while there and got him connected to other people in the industry. So, you know, he kind of pushed his way through, but he had a couple somewhat lucky introductions anyway. So
yeah,
those sound pretty good. Like, please introduce me to Billy Joel and a Canadian whatever crooner superstar Paul Anka. Like, great. Like, if you have those connections, I guess go for it.
But not only that, like, isn't Corey Hart a francophone?
Montreal, he's
born in Montreal. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I didn't know this. So did he start off, and I probably should have done a little bit more research on this, but did he start off singing French songs?
That I was not able to find. So
no, I just went right into First Offense, and that's all I can find that he's got. I don't see anything before that, but
I guess rewind a second though. Is what made you pick this as the first topic, Dane?
Okay, so I'm probably gonna like age myself a little bit here.
We're all old. It's all good.
I used to listen to a lot of Corey Hart back in the day.
back in 1985. At the ripe age of 5.
I do remember I had a friend named Corey, like, I think, and I was like, yo, man, you must really like Corey Hart 'cause you're Corey. Yes. Yes, I do.
kind of like the Michael Bolton connection there with Office Space.
Office Space, yeah, totally.
Okay, so I was like on Twitter one night and just reading a bunch of bullshit. Basically, that's all Twitter, really. But anyway, I enjoy it. And Bryan Adams apparently got pissed off because he was about to go on tour and angry at the fact that he was able to do COVID and obviously all of the quarantine.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he went off on a tangent. I guess he's been for a long time, like 30 years or so.
Right.
And so he was really heated about the fact that people were eating bats, but he said it in a way which was very offensive.
Okay.
And obviously he was angry and well known worldwide, and people got really angry. And so I was just reading sort of the comments about what he said, and some hashtags started trending. It was like hashtag Corey Hart's better. And so I was like, yeah, Corey Hart was awesome. I remember like the video for Sunglasses at Night, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was like basically like 30-second shots of, like a top down shot of him just like moving his shoulders and like singing into the camera. Yeah. And that's all he did for the whole video, but he looked so badass doing it.
It was the spiked hair and the shades that did it.
Yeah, he didn't have to like jump around and like Bryan Adams up the neighbors. And
well, there's quite a big difference between the two too, because Bryan Adams is definitely more the rock vein, where Corey Hart, for the most part, he had a lot of rock stuff in it. Like great guitars, tones, great guitarist, studio, people. Well, yeah, and there were sections. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, this great band, that like he got together. Like did you guys do any digging on this band that was backing him up?
No, I caught a couple little interviews, mid 80s kind of deal, but
okay. Let me humor you for a couple seconds here on a couple of these guys, because I looked up the personnel. Because as soon as I'm listening to this, I was like, this is like ridiculously sax heavy. Like this album, like there's a lot of sax on here. I'm like, seriously, is Kenny G on this album? Like, is he playing?
Okay, sorry, Mike. Who are you? You're talking about Corey Hart.
I'm talking about Corey Hart. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. And you're talking about the first album?
The First Offense.
First Offense. Okay.
Yes, that's the one. So
yeah.
So I went. I'm like, okay, so it's not Kenny G. But oddly enough, Kenny G did come out with his second album in 1983, the same year that Corey came out with his debut album. G-Force, by the way, is the name of that album. But, okay, so here, you guys will dig this. Okay, Andy Hamilton is the name of the guy who's playing saxophone on this Corey Hart album. Okay?
Okay.
This guy is a UK guy, and he's played with like a whole bunch of different people. I thought the coolest one was he plays saxophone on Radiohead, Kid A, that like nasty sax solo in the national
the really
anthem.
Busy one. Yeah,
that's him, man. That's the same guy as Corey Hart.
Wicked.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, same thing. So, and I followed that wormhole down, and I was like, where did you play on Kid A? Like, where are you on this album? And then it's like, you played tenor sax on the national anthem. And I'm like, oh, that's badass.
Sweet.
Like, that sax solo is like so nasty. It's so good. You guys know the one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking up lots of time on this, but I just found this stuff and I got to share it with you. Okay.
No, let's do it. That's why we're here.
Andy Barnett, the guy who played guitar on this album, You can hire this guy, like you can hire him on his website, like if you want him to play like your wedding or a gig or whatever. Boom,
Straight up
right
session
there.
player, man. That's a huge thing around.
Absolutely. And he's like older, obviously. Like, you know, he is listed as a songwriter for Iron Maiden.
Wicked.
This guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And he also played in a band, follow me on this one, called Full Metal Racket with Roger Daltrey of The Who.
What?
John McEnroe, the tennis player. And Steve Harris of Iron Maiden.
Wicked.
So I looked
What did
this
McEnroe
up.
play?
So I looked this up. They got a video on YouTube of them covering Led Zeppelin Rock and Roll with Roger Daltrey struggling through this song. Like he is like having a rough go. It doesn't go well for him, I don't think. So anyways, yeah. That was the two things on those guys that for the band. The rest of the guys were just kind of session players, but these guys went on to something else. But I thought those two connections were like cool.
That is great.
Yeah.
Wow. What?
So
This sort of reminds me of like, and like, I'm gonna go off on tangents.
it's all good.
That sort of reminds me of like super groups of the past, right? So we had like Velvet Revolver, who were like decent, right? They were all right. Remember them? It was, yeah.
bunch of slouches, those guys.
Yeah. We just listened to the ongoing history of new music one where he talked to Ian Thornley and talked about how Slash called him and sent him all the bed tracks, and he went down to LA and rehearsed and was going to join Velvet Revolver. And
they threw it out twice to him, two different occasions too.
Yeah,
So
before and after Scott came.
Yep.
Okay.
So anyways, yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No, I just find it interesting how like some of these can be recipes for disaster, or some of them can actually be the result of like an amazing like guys getting together. And like normally you would think like they're all professionals and they should just sit down and figure it out, but like sometimes it just doesn't work.
Definitely. But that's the thing. I mean, with most of these, you have to get the right session players in, and what they do is the producer will call in a list of say 5 or 8 different guitar session players and drummers and bass players and whatever. And each guy will come in and they'll play their part. They'll listen to the song usually once through, and then it's like, okay, we record now, and you come up with what you come up with. 10 minutes later, okay, you're done, get out. Next guy comes in, and these cats don't know if they're going to be on the album until it's released, kind of thing. So
Right.
and that's a huge thing with most of these albums, and I think that was a big thing with Corey Hart, because it's not like he had his high school band or he found these cats, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was just all studio hires, and I'm pretty sure it was all studio hires, and for the most part, it was the same thing on the road. A lot of the guys that were on the records were not actually on the road with him. I was doing a bit of digging here. There's a session guitar player I've been following for a couple of years now. His name is Tim Pierce, and he's played on major albums, mostly guitar solos and stuff, or helping with the writing process. And there was a story that he was talking about where he was hired to, it was one of his first gigs to go on the road with Corey Hart for, I'm pretty sure it was Man in the Box tour. And he was telling this story of how he had never been, I think he said it was New York. He had never been there before. So he flew out there, and somehow he got into either he missed his ride, and he ended up getting a cab, and the cab took him to a completely different spot, and he missed the gig. Like it was the night of the show kind of thing, and he didn't make it to the show. So I just
probably ripped
picture
that off himself. Corey Hart could probably fill that part in for the night.
that's the thing. He would have. It was good that he was in New York, because he could probably phone any session player at that moment.
Yeah.
And just have the best of the best next in line kind of thing. But I thought that was a pretty funny story. So,
Well, it says Corey Hart played keyboards on this first album, and like I want to know if he plays the sunglasses hook. Like, is that his thing? Like, does he play that throughout the song, or is that somebody else doing that?
Yeah, that'll be a deep dig to find that out. But
probably. I mean, have you guys ever seen Corey Hart in concert?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I tried to find just some live stuff here on the YouTubes and whatnot, and nothing I could find with him playing. It was all his session people. He was running around doing his thing, but yeah.
He's listed on some of the albums though as like playing instruments. Like he's at least the ones that I've found.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, he's written music for other musicians, so I would
he's
imagine
written and produced, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I would imagine he did do it. I'm going to say he did.
Mm-hmm.
I would demand it. If I was Corey Hart, I would have to lay down that part every single time. I mean, that guy must play that song every concert he's ever done in his life. So I mean,
well, the thing with that is if he could get it done in the first take, yes, they'll use that. Other than that, they're going to bring in someone because it's cheaper to get someone to do it the first time than wait for Mr. Hart to do it 8 times right. So
yeah. This is like super okay. So like going back to having these session musicians, I think you can see. So like going back to the whole like that Roger Daltrey was like trying to play something. What was it? And he's just like failing
was trying
miserably.
to sing, man. He was trying to sing.
Oh, he just
rock and roll Led Zeppelin, and I don't know. It was like I think this is in the '80s, so like Roger Daltrey's already kind of like done by that point, right? So
and they started in the wrong key.
Yeah,
it's almost
watch it, check it out. Yeah, it's worth a watch because it's a little bit of a train wreck.
It's almost like a gimmick. Like you got to. It's like you got to watch it. You got to like watch the train wreck. Okay, so I've got something for you here. So we had final album with EMI called Bang. Okay,
I listened to that one yesterday.
Okay, so it featured a drummer, Kenny Aronoff.
I know that guy.
Familiar with the name, yeah.
He's in all the drumming magazines.
Oh,
bald dude.
Okay, so Wikipedia told in brackets it says John Cougar Mellencamp, but I guess he played
with
drums for John. Okay, I thought John Cougar Mellencamp was playing drums for Corey Hart, and I was like,
no.
That would have been awesome. That would have been fantastic. No, that guy's like session player. Like he's on like he was playing with it like all these guys and plays in the studio all the time. He's like one of the guys you call if you want.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, John Cougar Mellencamp on drums is probably really shitty, but amazing to see.
Smoking
there was a section on. There was a section on. There's a Netflix documentary called Hired Guns. Watch that. They had a section, or Hired Gun it's called. They had a section with him, a focus on him, and it was pretty cool how, being the session player, he had to write a drum intro to, what the hell was that song? It's basically his most famous song. I can't think of it right now off the top of my head, but it was kind of like a free form intro where he had to do it in one take, and it was one of these things where if he didn't do it, he was basically not going to be on the album. They're going to get someone else to do it. So, and he was talking about how it was basically from one end of the studio drum room to the other. He had to figure out what he was going to do. It's like, okay, 3 steps. You only have to the 2 more steps. Okay, you have to do this one. Okay, you're sitting, ready, go. And they press play, and then he did that take, and that was the keeper, and that's what made that pretty well that album, just by, I don't know if it's accident or something was channeled through him or whatever, but I thought that was pretty neat.
Wow.
I love hearing stories about things that are done in like 1 or 2 takes, and then it's pressed, like it's done, right? Like I remember,
and it makes the song or makes the album.
Yeah. Like I remember hearing not even that long ago that it supposedly Kurt Cobain recorded all the In Utero lyrics and the vocals in one night. Just
doesn't
like
surprise
one
me.
night, ripped it all off, just like whatever he did, and then hit record, let's go.
Well, that doesn't really seem like a multiple take album, and they didn't do a lot of overdubs and backtracks. It was just so raw with Steve Albini there. So
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, so he probably just pushed it through real quick, and then that was the rawness he was looking for. Because you look at Albini, and he's very much stripped down punk, old school punk oriented, straightforward type deal. So that would be definitely along the lane there. So
Yeah, totally. So I guess the question is then, why did Bryan Adams absolutely explode and Corey Hart just kind of plateaued and then dropped off? What do you guys think?
I have the answer. I have the answer. So Bryan Adams, if you look at all of his albums, well, even just the first three, all the songs, well, the first four for the most part, you look at self-titled Bryan Adams in 80, was the songs were there, but the production wasn't there. But you can tell the seed was planted, and then you get into You Want It, You Got It, and it has the hits. It's like hit after hit, and they're rockers, and that's what it is. And then you look at Cuts Like a Knife, and it's damn near perfect from song to song. I mean, even if you're not a Bryan Adams fan, or you care for the rock genre, but you're not totally down with him, there's not a lot of songs on there that I would ever skip. If I got into that, I had to listen to Bryan Adams today kind of deal. And then you look at 84 for Reckless, and it's perfect. Like every song is a hit.
Yeah.
And then you go to Corey Hart, who's, a great vocalist. He's a great lyricist. But you look at his first, well, let's say his first four albums. You go First Offense and Boy in the Box. You can tell that production side and writing side, not necessarily his performance, but the producer and how the songs were arranged and written around him were very early 1983. Like it's so set in that date.
Yeah.
And I went into his more recent albums, and it seems like he continued in that pocket of 1983, 1985. Like he didn't really evolve past 85.
Yeah,
I think that sound was sort of like the quintessential early 80s sound, right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
he just stayed with it.
I had written down that it sounded a little bit like 1980s movie credit music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like when you're walking out of the theater at the end of a John Hughes movie and this song's playing and it sounds like that fits.
Exactly. Exactly. But there's solid songs on the first two albums, not even just talking Sunglasses, but like when you look at his songs are interesting because a lot of them have a really catchy verse, but not a catchy chorus, which seems to be very in reverse of most hit songs. Yeah. But I find that those are the parts that I remember more than the other parts.
I thought that both Bryan Adams and Corey Hart, I thought that both of the debut albums were kind of all over the place. Like it feels like they had like everything on that album. Like Corey Hart had like Latin, he had a power ballads, he had a synth pop hit. He had everything on there. And same kind of thing with Bryan Adams. That first debut album, when I listened to it, it's got like jazz on it. It's got like rock. It's got a little bit of country in there. There's like almost a disco song. I don't know if you guys heard that song tucked in the back half of that album. Like it's everywhere. Like it's just kind of a little bit of everything, right? So, and I thought that Corey Hart, even on that first album, he almost sounds different in every single song. Like his vocal stylings or his like approach to each song.
I think it was the production because a lot of that might have been done in different studios, maybe. Like, because you can tell that there's a difference in the recording of them as well. So,
yeah, but
yeah, I mean, but even with Bryan Adams, at least even from the first to now, it's always been very stripped down rock. Like it can sit in with any big Americana arena band, right? So
Well,
where Corey Hart really
yeah.
couldn't. It was like 80s pop for the most part with rock in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dane, you were talking about Waking Up the Neighbors because I went there. I hadn't been back to that album in a long time, and I listened to it again. And like, I didn't really know. It's kind of funny because I was like, man, like this sounds like it's got Mutt Lange on it. Like it sounds like it's got the Mutt Lange stink on it a little bit, right? So then I'm like, this sounds kind of like Def Leppard. Like there's a lot of whoas. Like,
but you know what? It's really interesting that you said that because that Waking Up the Neighbors, that reached number one in like a bunch of European countries as well, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
well, you remember
16
how
consecutive weeks
when we were kids. That album was like massive.
Oh yeah, it was massive, and so I think he was able to sort of like break that market in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't know if Corey Hart really did, right? Like Bryan Adams, I remember at one point he did like a duet with like Scary Spice, and it was like, what the hell's going on? Like that was in like the late 90s, I think.
Yeah,
but
Corey Hart was like 50 by then.
Yeah. But like Bryan Adams is super popular over in the UK. I think he's been living there for a long time, but like that Waking Up the Neighbors album is what sort of like broke him in Europe. And I think that's why he had that longevity that like Corey Hart didn't.
Yeah.
And like I think as far as I know, Corey Hart like had a bunch of kids and like sort of like retired in 9 or something like that.
Yeah, he was saying he shut things down. He had 3 kids or whatever, and he didn't want to be away from them and be an absent father, which is cool, but
right.
I just figure for the most part, when that happened, his career was, I don't know, he was on the same trajectory for a long ass time. Once he hit that one big plateau, he never really evolved past that. Once again, still a brilliant, amazing vocalist and great lyricist, but the energy of his music was not the same, where Bryan Adams was rock and Corey Hart was very pop. He had just too many chill songs to really get people excited for the most part, unless you were like a pop style fan. So
no, those that Bryan Adams stuff is like arena rock, like to the core. Like there's so much that he wants the crowd to sing along with in those. It's just like built, tailor made for it, right? Like,
well, every song on Reckless was a banger, and like it's just solid. Even Cuts Like a Knife had hit after hit, and that's the biggest thing, is just the consistent hits.
Well, did you guys see who produced these albums, and who was his songwriting partner? Did you get that?
Yeah, crazy, right? So that's an interesting, there's a full circle for you right there. So that's like 2 degrees separation from a band that the 3 of us used to call Think Not Think, right? Am I?
Absolutely, yeah, that's where we're going with that. Yes, so this James Valance, that's the guy, right? He was the drummer for Prism, the original drummer for Prism. So yes, that at the Chestermere Wakeboard Championship or Festival, or whatever you want to call it, right before the storm of the century blew in, the 3 of us plus our old singer, opened up for Prism. So that's the 2 degrees of separation to that. So on the same stage, absolutely. But that's the guy that kind of was with him through the whole thing, and then
the whole thing, I never knew that,
which is crazy. And then gets hooked up with Mutt Lange, and Mutt Lange starts writing shit with him too, right? Like, which is what he does. I think he writes the majority of these albums that he works on,
right?
Shania Twain and stuff like that.
That's right.
But so that long, and the previous Bryan Adams band, did you guys catch that too? The band he was in prior to being Bryan Adams?
Yeah.
Did you catch that, Mike? Yeah, Sweeney Todd.
No.
He was in a band called Sweeney Todd, and he was 15 years old.
Huh.
And then they poached him basically and said, you got to come out here. You're going to do your own stuff. And so he was like 20 years old when he cut that first album.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny about Sweeney Todd? We were just driving around one day listening to the radio, and Roxy Roller came on.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like, I think, their biggest hit. First of all, I thought that was a woman's.
Yeah, the first 20 times of hearing it, and then you kind of pick up on it, but
yeah, and whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But
Nope.
my whole perception changed on that song. But then we started thinking, like, what the fuck? What did they sing? What is this Roxy Roller? And like, why is it like? What is up with this song? And so just like researched a little bit, and it's all about like the indoor roller skating culture of like the late 70s.
No way.
And like, yeah, it was. So anyway, I mean, obviously it was probably like, a great song to listen to while you're skating around in the 70s doing whatever you do in the 70s. But it's funny because then we got, this project to take a look at Bryan Adams, and there he is. Like, was the original singer for this band, or was he just like in there?
I think he was just playing guitar, like just hacking it, being a 15-year-old.
Just being a 15-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he gets like set up in his like apartment or something in Vancouver and sets up this like home studio and starts recording this album when he's like 20 years old in 1980 or when in 79, whenever he started recording it.
Yeah.
It's funny you were talking about like that like realization about like songs like that it's a female male singer.
Your perception's totally blown. You're like,
Yeah.
I've listened to that song since I'm sure I was a little kid, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it happened to me lately. I think I maybe told Mike, but I was listening to the Grateful Dead, Casey Jones.
yep.
So
oh yeah,
I was like, I had always thought that the chorus was, what is it now? So what's the first part? Driving that train.
High on cocaine.
Okay, I thought it was out of cocaine.
yeah. So did I.
Oh no, man!
Never.
It's high on
Never.
cocaine. So you're not
Yep.
out of cocaine. You're driving the train high on cocaine.
Yep.
Oh,
So
I
I
thought it
was
was
like-
out of.
Yeah, my whole life.
Casey
ever
Jones, you
since-
better watch your
Watch
speed.
your speed. That's the song. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that makes
And
more
then,
sense.
Yeah, I was just my buddy was helping me lift blocks when we were moving, and he was singing the song when we had it on, and I was like, "Wait a second, like, what did you just sing?" He's like, "High on cocaine," and I'm like, "What? Go back, like, play that again." So that's happened to me. Yeah.
Well, at least it was a lot closer than most people get with lyrics like that. When you look at "Hold Me Closer," Tony Danza.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that once, and I'll never listen to Tiny Dancer the same way ever again.
Yeah, it wrecks you.
Yep. Well, I thought it was cool. A couple of years ago, what was it? Maybe was it last summer? Last summer, maybe the summer before. Went down to Calgary to the Bell Studio or Studio Bell, that big music museum.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, when I went down there, they had a Corey Hart exhibition. They had just started it, and yeah, it was kind of cool. Go in there, they had some guitars and stuff, and they had the sunglasses, and so that was kind of cool seeing these beat up old sunglasses sitting in this glass safety container. And
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of funny, like around that time too. Like it wasn't. When you think about like what Canadian music had during that time before those guys showed up, like it was like Rush and Anne Marie and
Stompin' Tom.
yeah, Stomp Tom and like God bless
hold
them.
up,
Like, that's
hold
great.
up,
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
up.
Yeah,
I'll save
Chilliwack.
this. I'll save this for the top 10 albums. But there was. Take a look at punk music.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So there was on the radio. I totally agree, but I think like in the pubs and community halls, there was a whole other, bunch of Canadians that were making gas.
totally.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
But
It just
anyway,
wasn't standing out.
No, and it was maybe just that type of music wasn't appreciated, or it just wasn't as, people wasn't received well here in Canada as, say, US or England, something like that. But
yeah, I think it's just the timing of that too, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, you even think about it, like, even with our band, like if we would have started, if we were 22 or 20 years old right now and tried doing that, we probably wouldn't have maybe gotten as far or did as well as we did based on that, right? Like, I think that it was just the timing of it all, and it was like that scene that was kind of like that whole can rock thing was still going on, and like we were kind of catching that wave a little bit, and there was a scene in Edmonton that was thriving and had a big following, and I think that all made, the whole ride fun, because it was just
yeah.
There's always somewhere to play, and
yeah. I don't know. I just think that bands starting out today have it harder, with all of that.
Well, it's a very different angle though, because now you've got social media and you've got YouTube and you've got live streams, and you got Instagram and Instagram Live. I mean, kids today, it's when we're playing to a pool of, you're lucky to reach 1,000 or 2,000 people. They could reach 10 million. The potential is there to reach X amount of million within weeks.
Yeah.
If you hit the right wave, or something goes viral, or so there's definitely more bands, because it's so much easier to do it from home and you don't have to book studio time. I mean, all you're paying for now is mixing for the most part, and mixing and mastering. Other than that, you can do whatever you want. And if you take over all your own self promotion and it's the whole DIY, get your shit out, just like the DC punk bands and the SoCal punk bands, and you got out and you flyered and you did everything you could to push. And it's the same thing now, where if you want to put in the work online, you can make a big splash. So
I think most definitely, and I think this is like a really good point, because I've been kind of thinking about this for a while now, and like I remember being a kid and thinking, like, if I could have every single CD I wanted, that would be an amazing thing. And now that is totally possible, and I can't choose friggin' 5 CDs, right?
Too many options.
And there's so much content and there's so much talent out there that the other day I was watching, I don't know if it was Kerrang magazine or some kind of metal like thing on YouTube. Yeah. And they were doing like basically the top albums of 2019. And there's so many genres and subgenres of metal. I have no idea what's even going on.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Like I feel like, okay, there's some stuff I like, and if I like it, I like it, and that's the only sort of way I can navigate all this stuff, because it's like, it's incredible how much, like I gave you guys, I think, a link to Rivers of the Nile.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And they got a fucking saxophone in there.
Well, it's cool. I mean, I there's a lot of metal bands doing that right now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe it's that guy. Maybe it's, what's his name again? Andy Hamilton? Andy Hamilton.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know.
70-year-old guy on stage with some 20-year-old metalheads.
Yeah.
Well, that's too. I mean, a couple of years back, I saw a band called Monuments, and their singer pulled out this alto sax halfway through and just ripped it.
Yeah. And you almost need that right now to stand out, is all I'm trying to say. It's
Definitely.
Like, back in the day, there was probably about 4 or 5 other bands that like play with and sort of had our own kind of following. It all stood out in our own individual way, but there wasn't a lot of like stuff for us. There wasn't a lot of bands that were kind of diluting the pool, right? I just think it's really hard now. If you're a young band, you got to be the fucking hardest out there, or a saxophone. You got to do something in order to stand out, because it's just
the big thing is the hustle, man. You gotta push harder and work harder, and you have to have that hook, and you have to have that one thing. They always say cream rises or whatever, but you still have to push it just to get your voice heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it feels like it's just a little bit of white noise at this stage, right? Like coming out with something is just a little bit, I don't know, but like it felt like it was different back then. But you're right, Mike. Like we were not able to reach that big of an audience, right? Like the internet was just kind of like getting a web page was just starting out then, so it was like,
And even that was a struggle.
yeah, right. You had to pay for it, and it was like you had to update it yourself, and it was brutal. But it's just a different. It'd be interesting to see like if that was today, like how many would you get? Like how many people would you get interested with your stuff at that point, right?
Right. And a lot of the time it's like flipping a coin too. When you go into, blindly throwing darts is when you go into Spotify and I'll go to the metal section there and I'll just start scrolling up and just randomly clicking on things. Cause without websites like Metal Sucks or Metal Injection or, that sort of a thing telling you, here's the reviews on, whatever 10, 20 albums are coming out this week and having the time to sit through those, you don't really know. So you just kind of grab and go and hopefully something's decent. I mean, I remember going, way back when we were young and you were not able to listen to these albums before you bought them. So you're going through and picking out whatever had the coolest album cover.
Yeah.
What had the craziest album cover, and that's the one I'm buying. I'm going to throw my $20 or whatever the hell it was and invest in this. And quite, sometimes it was total shite and other times it was, you found gold that stuck with you. But I mean, it's just,
well, and I think it's just different, right? Like based on how we get this, like when we were kids, we would watch Much Music and you would get some ideas from there, or you would get ideas from your friends that had something or whatever, or
that's the only way you heard about it
or whatever. Yeah. Right. Like that's how it all went down. But now it feels like you don't have that anymore. So like and I don't listen to the radio, so I don't know about any concerts really. So it's like,
right.
Unless you seek it out, like it's really, it's exhausting. Like it sounds again, cliche, like first world problem, but you're right. Like you've got every CD ever at your disposal. And I can't find anything. It's like walking through Blockbuster, and after all the good movies are gone, and you're like, well,
there were pros and cons to having the musical industry gatekeepers. They kept a lot of good bands out, but they also got it narrowed down your options to a point. So,
well, that's probably what happened going back to Bryan Adams. Excuse me, that's probably what happened to him, is because all these videos started like flooding into Much Music, right? Like how many times have you seen the Summer '69 video, right? Like a billion, like all those ones that he was doing. Everything I do it for you, like that video, all those, right? Like yeah. I think that
it still comes down between the two. It's the songs. So not that Corey Hart's were bad songs. They just were not. They were not catching the masses, I guess, in a way. Most of Colin James fans, it's rock out, have fun kind of a deal for the most part. I mean, there's ballads and shit there, but I think that's where the separation was.
That was the later half of the 80s and going into like the 90s. It was about, rock and roll, and then sort of like, then kind of metal hit the scene. And these sort of synth pop, more kind of sophisticated music really wasn't selling beers,
right.
You weren't going to concerts to feel nice and fashionable in the 80s. It was about like having fun. I remember this because I had uncles that were like right in their 20s around this time.
Right.
And this is like the stuff that they were listening to, and maybe a little bit more, less poppy than Bryan Adams, but it was definitely like that last half of the decade about like rock and roll.
Yep.
And sort of, synth pop had its day, and it was dated. It was over.
Well, another big thing too with Bryan Adams is, I mean, he was in that lane where he could open for a Bruce Springsteen or somebody that was massive in that Americana rock genre, and catch a bigger wave with that. So he just fit into more lanes, he just fit into a more mainstream catch on if you can open for them or anyone in that spot. So
it's funny because like the Corey Hart stuff kind of eventually went to like the adult contemporary side, right? Like
it kind of always was, except for a couple songs.
Well, it's funny
if
because
you start digging into
he's
it,
got this like bad boy image, right? Like on the first offense, like this is the first time I'm going to offend, which means I'm going to do it again, right? Like, I'm so bad that this is the first time. But,
and by album 3 or 4, it's no offense.
Yeah, like, but
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like Kevin Bacon on the front of that album cover too. And I had to do a double take to make sure it wasn't a stand-in on there. But I don't know. Like, they have that bad boy image, and then I think it just kind of he tries that bad boy image a little bit in the second one, and then it kind of starts fading out to like who he maybe really is. Because it feels like that was like, okay, Corey, like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make you look badass. And, like, you got a bad attitude. And, you love all the women and everything. And that's how we're going to do it, right?
A little more lock and load.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of felt like that. It felt a little bit, like, contrived. A little bit, that image that, like, they wanted. And even you were talking about the, sunglasses video. It's just, like, him looking all tough, wearing the leather jacket and the glasses, and like you said, moving his shoulders, right? That's basically all he's doing. But, you know, and that thing won a Juno, too, for best, video. But, I mean, what's it up against at that point, right? Like, not a lot. But, yeah, so I think that, just it kind of went in that adult contemporary. But, I mean, at the same time, Bryan Adams would be played on the Easy Rock station here all the time too, right? Like both of these guys, I think, would make it on there, depending on, Bryan Adams has got a little bit of something for everybody. I think it's like, if you like country, rockabilly kind of stuff, he's got a little bit of that. If you like the arena rock, he's got that. If you like the, have you ever really loved a woman kind of stuff for the ladies, he's got that. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's cooking up a little bit of something for everybody, and it feels like that's what's led him to success, to still be valid, and for him to say something about eating bats and still to make a wave in today's society means he had a big impact still, I think, right? Yeah, whether you like it or not, I guess. I've never seen that guy in concert either, though.
I was wondering that, Mike. I was like, I think one of us is him. I was like, I bet you Mike has even met him.
No,
but you haven't.
No,
because you met a lot of dudes, especially working at what was it?
Just
music. No, what was the
Music World?
Music World.
Yeah, I used to get all the free concert tickets and all the backstage stuff, and that was definitely a perk to that. It was anytime anybody wasn't using the tickets, I was like, bring them to me. Going to university, it was awesome. There was lots of stuff, actually. So, hey, and did you know that Corey Hart is sober? Did you read that? Maybe this makes it all make sense. I don't know, but he's
always been sober.
Always.
Him and Kim Mitchell are
never done a drug in his life. Never, none of that.
Yeah, he said he's taken like 3 sips of beer in his entire life.
Yep.
Can you imagine that?
Good for him.
Yeah, but like that's just crazy. Like when you think about that, can you imagine not ever drinking beer? Like
unreal.
Oh, especially when he was blowing up in friggin' 85.
Oh, he said that there was just like right across the console when he was recording.
Yep, blow everywhere.
Just rails, just nothing but rails, and he was like, "No way, man, not doing that."
who can go farthest down the mixing board and
yeah, exactly. Well, and you know what? Like he had he had a second hit in the second album too, right? Like he didn't just kind of one hit wonder. Like at least he had
solid songs.
Yeah, Never Surrender was the next one there, and then then he was kind of plateau.
Yep.
Yeah. But then he started writing for.
Well, he wrote a bunch for Celine Dion and did a bunch of that stuff, and so he got into like the writing production side. I mean, there's still a lot of money in that. So
you could say he was just smart. He was just sort of like he understood the beast, and he didn't wind up like 90% of people who had a hit record in the 80s. You know,
he didn't have the drive to have the ego to have the superstar. He hit that peak and he was like, I'm good.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, it is super rare when you hear a story like that. It's commendable.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. But I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, if you ask me if I'd rather be Corey Hart or Bryan Adams right now, I'd probably tell you Bryan Adams just because.
Yep.
Really?
I don't know. I think that guy had a lot of fun tours, like back in the day. Like
he would have a lot more stories.
Yeah, like I want to be on the Waking Up the Neighbors tour. I want to be playing on that one. Like that bitch, that was a good time.
Do you, as a 57-year-old fucking has-been, angry? I don't know. let's put it this way. I mean, like Corey Hart, he did it the way he did it. He still wound up with a record label in the end. Tons of recognition.
Yeah, tons of Juno nominations. It's all
got a wife and a family, and he's kicking it in the Bahamas right now. Sounds all right to me.
Yeah,
what the fuck is Bryan Adams doing? Griping because he didn't get to play the fucking wind spear in Edmonton. Like,
yeah. I'm just speaking monetarily.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, yeah.
I mean, my guess is that Bryan Adams has a couple more bucks than Corey Hart. Not that there's anything wrong with having less money. I'm not knocking that. Fantastic.
I still think Bryan Adams would be a lot more fun to play a gig with.
Yeah.
One gig, get up there, rock it out. You know, you're gonna play the hits and you're gonna have a blast.
But if Corey Hart got up there and started playing the hook to Sunglasses on his keyboard, you would be fucking fired up too, I bet you.
Oh, I'd be in there for that song, definitely. But anything after that, I'll do all the guitar solos on that album. I'll rip those up real good. But other than that, I'll just stand back and wait for a fun part to hit.
Yeah. If you don't have a sax player, good luck trying to recreate that album because like I said, it's hard on the sax.
I'll just learn all the parts on guitar and then run it through MIDI and have a MIDI sax sound coming out of it, and we're done.
That's all you need.
Yep. Well, I guess we should start to gear this one down a little bit, but let's. What are our thoughts on? I guess do we want to do like a favorite album of 83, the debut year of Corey Hart's First Offense?
That's a good one. I gotta grab a beer though for that.
Yeah, definitely do it.
Okay.
Let's put it on pause.
Okay. Okay, I had a little bit of I wasn't sure how to
doesn't matter genre, it doesn't matter anything.
Because I don't necessarily remember 83, but I remember a lot of the albums that came out of that year. And I remember as a kid, there was a couple that I was like, whoa. And like some of them really changed, like as far as like what I thought was good music. Probably the first like real music that I had, ever listened to. And, but then there's like now, that I look back at 1983 and some of the albums that came out, and like,
and there's a ton.
Obviously, it's different,
of albums
right?
In 1983, like overall,
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, just wild.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a year.
Yep.
So I remember being a kid, and I is probably being, a 5 or 6 year old driving around in my dad's car, and my dad had Def Leppard, Pyromania. And I remember, first of all, I remember the cover of that album and thinking like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, it looks like some sort of like skyscraper, and there's like an explosion of fire coming under the sun. Yeah.
The target,
yeah,
like the gun
super
target
aggressive
on it.
and like,
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
this is dangerous. This is bad music, but I like it. And I just remember like listening to it, and it was like, even, I don't know if it was the beginning of the album or the end of the album, had this guy like striking a match and laughing. And I was like, this is real. This is crazy. And it was sort of before Def Leppard became this kind of like poppy, whatever, selling a bunch of, I remember they had like Kokanee sort of like go to a cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
And Def Leppard would come and play. And like, I think they got booed. This was like at the very end of their career, and not so great. But like Pyromania, I remember like the teenagers across the street from me listening and having a party and listening to it. And I thought it was so bad, but like I was so infatuated with this like edgy kind of metal, but like palatable rock and roll. I really, I think out of all of them as a kid, Def Leppard, and even now I go back to it, I'm like, some of this shit's like pretty good. It's a distinctive sound, it's tight. And if you're going on a road trip and the sun's shining and you're on the highway, I'm not embarrassed to that. I'll listen to them. Nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But in all honesty, when I took a look at that, and like David Bowie, Let's Dance, right? And like that album is just, to me, like, everyone loves David Bowie, and I think a lot of people really focus on Stardust, all of that great music, but like Let's Dance, this sort of like turning point for him, being a lot more cocaine, but like changed his persona and started making like, I don't know if it was like more of a sort of minimal approach to like his recipe.
It was
just
like almost like David
more
Bowie's
refined.
response to the 80s.
More refined,
right?
I think is.
It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
And definitely more groovy and
showed that he was
it,
like versatile, right? He do other things and could still be, David Bowie, but a different kind of David Bowie that people loved. And I remember my parents had that tape as well, and I thought it was funny. I didn't get it, but now I can listen to any song on that and just be like, from the music production to like the lyrics, and to me.
Well, and it was super dope too that they had Stevie Ray Vaughan as the main guitar player on a lot of that stuff. So it kind of brought another
it was like Americana.
Things, cool.
It's sort of just kind of David Bowie, kind of like, okay, here I am in the States, and I'm like embracing this kind of crazy 80s American culture. And
step on your toes there, Mike. Maybe that's in there, but Stevie Ray Vaughan, Texas Flood came out in 1983 too, and that is like it was up there for me. It's like in my top 3 for 1983 albums, but it did. But that is, if you're going to listen to any Stevie Ray Vaughan to start yourself off, I think Texas Flood is a fantastic album to start with. In the canon.
Oh, definitely. And I was brought up on so much of that stuff. And I mean, you look at Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eddie Van Halen and Jimmy Page were probably the 3 main cats that got me interested and hooked on playing guitar. So you can't put that out of the running at all. So
that ever has been experienced is the Double Trouble with Big Sugar show at Reds. Like, I have never my ears have never been destroyed like that in my life. Anyways, that was crazy. Takes me back to that.
That was an unreal show.
Let's hear your album of '83.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's very hard to narrow down for me. I came up in a hard rock metal household, so that stitch in time was quite massive for that, what I was listening to then and what my folks were listening to. I mean, my pops was, he raised me on Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and all of that. So it was the soundtrack in the background to, from birth in 80 to, understanding what music was and on till now. But I mean, just looking at, there's so many great things. I mean, you look at Dio, Holy Diver, you look at Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, you got Bark at the Moon, Ozzy, which was unreal. And I mean, Ozzy was my first concert, so that was kind of a huge thing for me. And then you look at, there's a lot of the blues side I was brought up with, like, blues rock stuff. You look at ZZ Top, Eliminator, stuff like that, Texas Flood as well. But I guess the way I came at it was not, I guess, partially what I was influenced as a child, but now looking back at what I know from what has changed me as a musician and brought me into the genres that I focus in now. I guess the album I would have to pick would be Metallica, Kill 'Em All.
Choice for you.
That was yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You got that one. I mean, it's solid front to back. It was completely life changing at its for the genre. Without that, you wouldn't have so many levels of metal we know good today. Choice. So
three good choices.
That's
so
definitely
far, yeah.
my number one pick of 83. So
mine kind of goes in later in life.
Yeah.
So if you guys are kind of going back to 83, mine's like a late find in my life. And I think I've shared this both with you, but my 1983 pick is the Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues. That's oh man, I found out about them late.
Nice, yeah, you hit that one quite late, so
like non-stop, like it was, I couldn't get it off. Like I just was listening to it all the time, and like even when I was moving, so like between houses, I just had that album on going all the time, like non-stop, right? So it was funny because I don't know if you guys have got this before, but like I was at work one day and I open up, like I was listening to like something in the morning when I get into work and open up Spotify and it says, "Congratulations, you're one of the top 1% fans of the Talking Heads in the entire world." So I was like, whoa, like I've been listening to the Talking Heads for this whole time. So anyways, just hardcore, right? So I listened to this and then, I went into
super fan.
Stop Making Sense, which was like their concert video that they made based off of this album. And it's like, as a concert, like video or DVD or whatever you want to call it, like just brilliant, like starting the entire show off with like absolutely nothing but like a stripped down guitar and vocals, and then they just like slowly add song by song more to the band, and by like song 5 everybody's on stage and it's just like, full of background singers and like the horn section, and David Byrne's wearing the gigantic suit and is doing all the like crazy dancing to the songs, and it's just like I couldn't get my eyes off of him, man. Like he was just like as a front man and as a guy like that, like it was kind of mesmerizing. So that's my pick for 1983. Like I said, I kind of came into it late, but Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues is my pick. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess on that note, we'll shut this down for an episode, and looks like that was a good one. So we'll probably come back with another. And thanks for coming out. Cheers.